I do that is because a thin spot will allow the chef to be able to see when things are starting to change. When it's really thick, it's hard to see. And what I can see in that little hole is that I'll start to notice that the sugar will start to turn to liquid. Sugar melts just as a result of heat. It can also dissolve, but it will melt if it's heated enough. So once it starts turning liquid, I know that I'm getting liquid on the bottom, and I'll start to turn my pan a little bit. I really don't want to be stirring this. When I stir sugar, what happens is undoubtedly some little bit of impurity will get in there. The smallest impurity, even one small, tiny, crystalline piece of sugar, will cause the whole batch to turn back into crystals. So we have to be careful that we don't get any impurities in there. So having a clean pot to start with makes a big difference. And of course not messing with it. And it's really tempting to stir it. I mean, really tempting to stir it. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm starting to notice it changing around the edges. Starting to get some liquid around the edges. At first it'll melt and be clear as glass, but then it'll start to turn sort of golden honey color. You decide when you want it
to... It looks like it's burning. I like that.
There is water underneath the...
yeah, there's a little bit of water underneath there.
Gotcha.
Now you always want to pull your dry caramel before it's ready, because when it's ready, it will continue cooking in your pot. So as I move this around a little bit, getting all my sugar involved in the caramel, it's going to get to that honey color, and then it'll start turning into sort of a amber color, and then into chestnut before you know it. So you want to make sure that you're ready for it. Right now, it's starting to change color, as you can see in the screen as well, I think. And
God forbid, don't get any on you.
Don't get it
come
on.
off and you'll burn the crap out of yourself as John King.
Now you'll notice that the color of that is starting to turn to a nice honey color. If I want to keep it that color, I better stop right about there. I'm just going to stop where I'm at. It'll continue cooking and continue getting darker. If I go any further with it, of course, it will really get dark. And the more dark it gets, the more bitter it gets. So I have to be aware of the consequences of my actions. If it's going to get bitter, that's going to affect how my guest or whoever I'm feeding here is going to perceive that caramel. Right now, it's a really nice color. Now, that's fast, isn't it? You just got to kind of keep an eye on it. You don't want to let it go. Right now it's quite liquid, so I'm going to let it cool down a little bit before I start doing anything with it. I'm just going to make a few garnishes with this. But you can do a lot with this. You can dip things in it. It will start cooling down. If it does cool down too much and gets too thick, you can always put it back on the flame, loosen it up a little bit, and just go back to using it. When we make profiteroles with pâte à choux, and we fill them with, let's say, pastry cream, we can also dip those in caramel. And they're really wonderful. You dip them in caramel, put them on a hard surface, like on a non-stick pad like this, and they will have a nice flat, shiny spot on the top.
I like to take the caramel, and when I'm making a pudding, I add a little bit of fresh caramel.
Yeah. This is extremely hot, though. If you add this to pudding, this will be extremely hot. It will cause it.
It's got to be boiling for you.
Yeah, I mean, this is extremely hot. So, and to keep it liquid, it has to be hot. If you were going to try to make a caramel sauce, this is how you would start. Right now this is usable for garnish and for dipping things in, but it'll become hard candy once it's cool. If you want to make a sauce, there are many recipes out there, but basically, in short, what they do is you add butter to this and you whisk in the butter. Then you start whisking in cream, hot cream, instead of cool. And what that'll do is the fat will start cooling down the caramel and form a nice sauce. How much butter and how much cream you add will have an effect on how loose the sauce is. Sometimes the sauce is very pourable and it's just a very liquid sauce. Other times you might want it to be more chewy or more thick. If you want to make caramel candies that are chewy candies, you would add very little butter and very little cream. The less additives you add to it, the more thick it's going to be in the final product. Now this is getting to be thick now. What we can do is on a sill pad. Sill pad's a silicone, heat-resistant mat. We can just take this and some of you guys were talking about like spider webs. We could just make crisscrosses of things. A little bit more here. You can make garnishes of all different shapes and sizes with caramel. As long as you crisscross it, it'll be fairly strong. And once this is cool, it'll be, rock hard. So, what Kennan's absolutely right. Do not get it on your skin. I have a scar on top of one of my fingers. I got some of this on my finger, and the only way to get it off was to pull it off. The problem is it took my skin with it. And I've got a nice scar there now.
Josh James had a pretty good one on the, in between his thumb and his first finger.
And his webbing there?
Huh?
In the webbing?
Yeah.
Yeah? That's painful. Sugar does not cool down quick, and your body will absorb that heat and cause you to have, really bad injury. It's real bad burn. Remember, this is at over 300 degrees, so be careful.
I heard
Yeah.
that this is one of the worst burns a chef gets from sugar.
Yeah, I would say this and steam are the two worst that I've ever experienced. There's a lot of other possibilities. So you have
Even if
around.
you drop it on your clothes, it still burns like nobody's business.
Oh yeah.
My grandma was trying to teach me the whole spiderweb method. I had a whole spoonful of it, and I dropped it right on my lap. Ouch.
And then it's, you got to rip off your pants, get them off quick. Yeah, because otherwise.
Yeah, I
they'll
dropped my
run through.
skivvies right there.
Yeah, it's like if you're on fire. If you're on fire, you don't worry about nudity. You get your clothes off. Yeah, it's just too much.
We'll do with it later.
Yeah. I'll deal with my embarrassment later. Right now, I've got to protect my skin.
But I also, like when we did it first from there all the way to there, keep
Oh, yeah.
pulling it.
And you can see I just warmed it up here on the stove just to get this a little more fluid. A little trick that you can do if you have an object like this. Let's turn it over.
Will that not like stick?
It shouldn't stick too much. We can create something of a little nest.
Can you like spray it with like something first? Maybe help it not stick?
If you spray it with pan spray, it won't stick nearly as much.
Okay. Should we next?
By creating this, you're going to have something of like a little nest. And you can trim it with scissors, or you can trim it with by breaking the edges. Or just leave this expanded like collar on it. But you can see how thin this stuff gets. When it starts getting thick, it starts to become something like what we call spun sugar, where it becomes like a spider web. You can see how hard this stuff is getting. After we let these dry, of course, these garnishes can be pulled right up. You can just trim the edges. And of course, these could be propped up in here and look very nice.
Oh, that's cool.
It'd be really nice. And just, it's just a reinforcement of the whole concept of caramel.
Gold.
It really does. And how much you cook it really makes a big difference. Of course, they only last for so long. It's sugar, right? So sugar is hygroscopic. It gathers moisture from the air. Won't be long before these are sticky and they start to sag. So it's the kind of thing that you make. If you're going to keep them for an amount of time before service, keep them inside an airtight container and keep them dry. And you can actually buy limestone that you can put inside of a plastic container that will draw moisture out of the air and keep this kind of stuff crispy.
What about adding food color to the sugar?
That can be done. That can be done if you. I'm going to see if I can get this thing out of here without destroying it.
That'd be cool though. Just like that.
Probably should have sprayed it first, yeah.
It did pop out, but I broke a little section of it. If you were going to make these, of course you'd make many of them, because you're going to probably break a few. But part of the cool thing about it is now you've got a container, and you can put things inside of it. And
Pop another one of those boys in there.
yeah, we could also, we could just pop one in there, or we could try, if you could get it out of here, if you could actually freeze it, you could pop it right down in there. It'd be pretty neat. All kinds of possibilities with sugar. That's dry method. Now, dry method's pretty quick.